Hey everyone, welcome to Six Path Weeb. I'm excited to have you here because today we're exploring a fanfic scenario that really turns the Naruto universe upside down. What if Konoha failed Naruko? Part 2. In this story, we're diving into the what-ifs of the ninja world, exploring choices, consequences, and paths that could have been completely different. We'll see how Naruko's journey might have unfolded if her village had failed to support her, and what that means for the people around her. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer: all content here is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage or characters used. Full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. So, sit back, immerse yourself in the story, and let's explore this alternate Naruto universe together. Let's get started. An annoyed Tsunade slammed the door to her office so hard it rattled the frames on the walls, a clear sign she was not in the mood for nonsense. Behind her stood her loyal assistant Shizune and Kakashi Hatake, her silver-haired Jonin who looked slightly worse for wear, bandages and band-aids marking the remnants of a recent mission. On the windowsill perched Jiraiya, tapping his chin with curiosity, eager to hear every detail about what had just unfolded in the village. Tsunade's frustration stemmed from the council meeting that had ended only minutes ago. Normally, such meetings were for matters that affected the whole village, not the peculiar incident involving Team 7's latest mission. Even if the team had been sent to bring back a former shinobi, especially one as extraordinary as a Jinchuriki, it shouldn't have required the attention of the full council. After all, missions were assigned by the Hokage, and their results were hers alone to know. But none of that mattered because Danzo, after hearing a report from Sai, had insisted on summoning the council. He wanted to stoke fear about Naruko, hoping that by playing on the council's anxieties, Tsunade would label her as a missing nin or make her retrieval a top priority. Of course, Kakashi had to report what actually happened, and thankfully, Naruko hadn't hurt anyone. She was far too clever for that. Now, the Anbu had been dismissed, the room sealed for privacy, and Tsunade sighed, flopping into her chair. Sometimes I wish my granduncle hadn't come up with that council idea, she muttered. Yeah, Jiraiya replied from the windowsill. After seeing Danzo's face when he heard about Naruko's skills, I'd say he'll try everything to get her under his thumb. Your permission or not? Tsunade raised an eyebrow at Kakashi. Okay, Kakashi, I know you left some things out during the meeting, but after receiving a letter from the Kazekage about Suna border patrols seeing your team leave, though I suspect Naruko tipped them off somehow, I think this situation is more serious than you made it out to be. I want the full story, everything that happened when you encountered Naruko. Kakashi exhaled and began his detailed explanation. How they had tried to negotiate, how she had outsmarted them at every turn, and how she seemed to hold a particular grudge, mostly against him and Sakura. Sai had also accidentally gotten on her bad side with a careless remark. I told you sending them was a bad idea, Jiraiya muttered. Tsunade shot him a glare before turning back to Kakashi. And Sasuke? What about her feelings toward him? She didn't seem as upset with Sasuke, Kakashi explained. Though she's careful, I wouldn't underestimate her. There might be a little resentment, but not enough to cause trouble, for now. So, Tsunade said thoughtfully, our next team will have to be on better terms with Naruko. No misunderstandings this time. Kakashi nodded. Also, she's faster and stronger than expected. Her reaction time is at least Jonin level, and she's a wind chakra user. She even has a new Shunshine technique that leaves after images. It's incredible. Jiraiya whistled. She got that from her parents, no doubt. Incredible control for someone her age. Kakashi continued, his tone serious. Her wind techniques are precise, mostly midrange, but she can attack and defend with them. Her chakra reserves are enormous, practically Bijou level, but she controls it perfectly. She even managed to counter Sakura's chakra-enhanced strength with a small pulse of her own chakra. Shizune blinked. She's amazing. Where has she been all these years? And there's more, Kakashi said. She can use her mother's chakra chains, and I think, she might have a variation of Minato's Hiraishin technique. At the end of the fight, she disappeared like that. Jiraiya's eyes went wide. She used the Sekirei too? Kushina's weapon? Kakashi nodded. Yes. And she even combined it with her own skill in Kenjutsu to defend against Sasuke and Sai's attacks. She's well beyond what we expected. Tsunade took a deep breath, holding a bottle of sake to steady herself. You said there was a fourth thing? Kakashi hesitated before speaking. During the fight, she used a technique that isn't a standard wind jutsu. Sasuke said she called it Onmyotan. At the word, Tsunade's mind flashed back to her grandmother, Mito Uzumaki, and something long forgotten, a mention of a rare, non-elemental chakra nature. Shizune leaned forward, eyes wide. On my Otan? Are you saying, she has a bloodline ability? Maybe, Kakashi said. We don't know the full extent yet. And I went in unprepared, hoping we wouldn't have to fight. I didn't expect Naruko to have grown so much. Jiraiya finally spoke, breaking the stunned silence. That's quite an understatement. Tsunade's gaze softened, a mix of worry and pride in her eyes. She's not just strong, she's extraordinary. But more than that, she's clever, resourceful, one of the brightest young shinobi I've ever seen. We'll have to be careful, and kind, if we hope to guide her safely. And in that moment, the three of them realized something. Naruko was no ordinary shinobi. She was a whirlwind of talent, heart, and determination, ready to carve her own path, and it was up to the village to meet her with respect, guidance, and trust. Remember a few days ago when I said that the mask the Gaki wore sounded familiar? Jiraiya asked. Well, I looked into it and discovered that starting from 4 years ago, a wandering ninja had been making a name for herself. She did things like helping communities overthrow corrupt leaders or stop mischief makers in several countries, Moon Country, Bird Country, and Vegetable Country. She even helped Hoshigakur find a fair leader and assisted the High Priestess of Demon Country in stopping a mischievous ancient spirit called Morio before it could cause trouble. And the most amazing thing of all is that she helped the Kiri rebels during a civil struggle and, according to my sources, defeated Yagura, the Yondaime Mizukage, and the Sanbi Jinchuriki all on her own. Jiraiya paused, catching his breath before continuing. And so far, no one knows what she looks like or her real name. All anyone has to go by, besides maybe the leaders of those countries, is that she has bright red hair and wears a fox-shaped mask similar to the one Shino described Naruko wearing. So people started calling her Kodama, or Fox Spirit, because she appears and disappears like a whisper in the wind. Shizune, Tsunade, and Kakashi all had wide eyes and dropped jaws, though Kakashi's mask hid his reaction. They had no idea that Naruko had grown so strong over the past 6 years. But when they thought about it, it made sense. Naruko had always been determined, full of courage, and never willing to give up. Seeing her easily outmaneuver her former team only confirmed it. Her accomplishments meant she had to be S rank, perhaps even greater. But that also meant one thing. That basically means if we ever have to bring Naruko back, which sounds almost impossible, we'll have to deal with all these countries: wind, wave, spring, tea, vegetable, bird, moon, demon, water, Sunagakur, Kirigakur, Takigakur, Yukigakur, Getsugakur, and Hoshigakur, Tsunade said, summing it all up. When Jiraiya nodded, she groaned and slammed her head on the table so hard it split in two. Shizune quickly ran to fetch another desk, leaving Tsunade alone with her former teammate and Kakashi. Finally, Kakashi spoke. Well, political reasons aside, maybe it's best to let Naruko live her life. If what Jiraiya-sama said is true, she can handle nearly anything, including Akatsuki. It's clear she has no desire to come back, and pushing her might only make her dislike the village more. She could even decide to join another village like Suna or Kiri. Yeah, but for how long? Jiraiya asked, looking at Tsunade. We also have to consider the risks. Danzo won't let her wander freely or join another village. He'll try to bring her under his control. He won't risk harming her since only an Uzumaki can contain the Kyuubi, unless she has a child. And with the fame she's gained, she's now one of the top 10 shinobi wanted in several villages and even in the black market. That's a huge target on her head. And of course, Akatsuki. Everyone in that group is strong and experienced. If their leader gets involved, we don't know how tough she could be. You're right, Jiraiya, Tsunade said softly, as she began writing on a scroll that had survived her desk's collapse. As much as it hurts, it's for Naruko's own good to bring her back to the village where she can be safe. I'll accept that she may hate me or the village for a while, but I'll also reveal her full heritage when she returns. Hopefully, that will make people respect her and maybe even convince her to stay. She'll live in the Senju compound with me, it's family, after all. She handed the scroll to Kakashi. This is the list of the team for the next retrieval mission. For now, since we don't know where Naruko is, the team should focus on preparing. Teach them all the techniques she used so they have a chance to handle her. Also, share her alias. Kakashi nodded and left instantly with a shunshine. I have a funny feeling I'm on that list, Haim? Jiraiya said. Damn straight. You, along with teams 7, 8, 9, and 10, minus Kurenai, she or Asuma will stay to watch over their child. I'm replacing her with Yugao since her sword skills should be enough to match Naruko. Kenzo, Anko, Iruka and Shizune will come too. The last two can hopefully reason with her before we use force. And if things get out of hand, the Hokage platoon will be on standby to teleport me to the area using Hiraishin. Isn't that a bit extreme? Jiraiya asked, listening to her plans. Maybe, Tsunade admitted. But Naruko is S rank in skill. We don't fully know her limits, but she can control the Kyuubi and its chakra. If she doesn't want to return, it'll take force, and it won't be easy. Having a strong team is the best way to ensure we can bring her back safely. And even if we do, Jiraiya said, we'll face the wrath of not just Naruko, but an entire line of allies from many countries. Better than letting her fall into Akatsuki's hands, be used as a weapon, or worse, be hunted for profit, Tsunade replied, heading toward the door. I'd rather protect her myself. Going for a drink, Haim? Jiraiya asked, watching her leave. No, she said firmly. I need to visit the Senju compound. There's something of my grandmother's I need to see to confirm a suspicion. Meanwhile, get our spy network working to locate Naruko. The sooner we find her, the better. With that, Tsunade left the office, her steps sure and determined. Konoha, Training Ground 7, Konoha 12. The members of the unofficial Konoha 12, minus Sai, had gathered at Team 7's old training ground. They were eager to hear from Sasuke and Sakura about their encounter with Naruko. By the time the story ended, everyone looked astonished. After a pause, it was Shino who spoke first. I didn't expect Naruko-san to become so capable, the Aburame said thoughtfully. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't try to challenge her when I had the chance. Kenten tilted her head, thinking aloud. I wonder where Naruko got that sword she used. Maybe I could take a look at it someday. Rock Lee clapped his hands together enthusiastically. It's wonderful to know that Naruko's energy and spirit are as bright as ever. Though, the idea of her not wanting to return to the village is a little worrying. That's an understatement, Shikamaru muttered. Hokage-sama might send a team to find her, and, well, I have a feeling it'll be us. Hinata, quiet as ever, whispered softly, maybe Hokage-sama will let Naruko be if she's happier away from the village. Her heart ached a little at the thought of her friend being far away, but she also knew that Naruko would flourish wherever she chose to be. Sasuke added solemnly, she might be happy away from Konoha, but the risks are too great. Other villages or dangerous groups could capture her, and, as Shikamaru said, we might be the ones sent to bring her back safely. Choji, munching on some chips, asked Shikamaru quietly, you really think they'll send all of us? Shikamaru sighed. If what Sasuke and Sakura said is true, and they, along with Kakashi-sensei and Sai, couldn't match her, then yes. They'll send all of us. Our goal is to convince her to return willingly, but first, we have to find her. Ino piped up, couldn't we just ask Temari where Naruko might be? Shikamaru shook his head. Temari has already left for her village, and even if she were here, she wouldn't tell me. That girl is too stubborn. Nothing short of a major mission would change her mind. Kiba, always optimistic, grinned. Don't worry. Even if all of us go, Naruko won't run forever. Once Hokage apologizes, she'll probably laugh it off like the way she always does. Sasuke gave a small, doubtful shake of his head. Perhaps. But until we know where she is, we can't move. And if it's in a place where our presence could cause trouble, we must wait. Sakura wagged a finger at Ino. So no gossiping about this, Ino. Ino laughed nervously, glancing around at the others for support, but the room stayed silent. Elsewhere in the village. At a quiet bar, Kakashi was speaking with Asuma, Guy, Yamato, and Iruka about the mission involving Naruko. He had already briefed Anko and Yugao and explained her new alias. I can't believe how much she's grown, Asuma said, astonished. From the spirited orange-haired girl we knew, to someone who could be considered a top-tier shinobi. Jiraiya-sama seems convinced that Naruko and the Kodama she's known as now are the same person, Kakashi added. Iruka nodded slowly. It makes sense. She's always had a strong heart and wanted to help others. I suppose she's just found her own way to do it. Guy's eyes sparkled. Her spirit is stronger than ever. I look forward to seeing her again. Kakashi's expression grew serious. It may not be a simple reunion. We must be prepared. Asuma tilted his head. How serious could it be? Kakashi sighed. Let's just say, even with her friends helping, Naruko has grown beyond what most of us could handle alone. We need to approach carefully, and with respect for her choices. Amiga Core. In the endless reign of Amigakure, 3 figures stood on the highest tower. A young woman with bright orange hair, wearing the Akatsuki cloak, gazed at the clouds, seemingly untouched by the weather. "She's here," said a calm voice behind her. Konan, with soft blue hair and amber eyes, approached. "Understood," said Nagato, her longtime friend, before turning to another figure cloaked in black and orange, whose face was hidden by a mask. "Is this the same Kyubi Jinchuriki we've heard about?" asked the masked figure, curiosity in her tone. "Yes," Nagato replied quietly. "Her skill level. Her heart. It's remarkable. But she's still young, still learning. We must be careful with her." Konan nodded. "Even with her heritage, she is her own person. Her choices belong to her alone." Madara, observing, added calmly, "And that's why she is extraordinary. Not because of her family, but because she decides her own path." Naruko, on the tower, looked down at the rain-soaked streets below. A small smile played on her lips. Though the world was full of challenges, she felt ready to meet them, not as anyone else's legacy, but as herself. And somewhere in Konoha, her friends prepared to follow her journey, hoping to one day see her smile once more. Yes, but that doesn't make it any less dangerous. If the Jinchuriki has the bloodline and mastered it, even if not on the same level as Sadahiko, she could become very difficult to capture. Combined with how she managed to escape from a tracking expert of Kakashi's level, along with the fact we still don't know the full extent of her abilities, we cannot afford to be reckless, Madara cautioned. "You seem to be quite nervous about anything involving Sadahiko," Konan said, her voice carrying a touch of teasing. She had always been wary of the Uchiha, suspecting he was using Nagato, and she found a little joy in seeing him unsettled, even if only slightly. Madara, however, remained calm and unreadable. "You would feel the same if you saw what she is capable of," he said. "While she is the only other person I have ever respected along with Hashirama, Sadahiko Uzumaki is also the only person I have ever feared. She was able to face both Hashirama and me at the same time and bested us. Her skills with Onmyotan, as well as Fuinjutsu, Kenjutsu, and her clan's precise chakra manipulation, make her a shinobi of unparalleled talent. And you wouldn't believe what happens when she becomes enraged." Madara turned toward the edge of the cliff where Pain had stood moments ago. "After 6 years of staying hidden, we've finally located the Kyubi Jinchuriki. We cannot lose her again. We cannot afford mistakes, not when we are so close to completing our goal." With that, the ancient Uchiha disappeared into thin air, leaving only Pain, Konan, and the endless rain. Yet the angel of Amigakure could tell something was troubling her old friend from the way the Deva path stared into the stormy sky. "Is something wrong, Nagato? You've been very quiet ever since this news about the Kyubi Jinchuriki came," Konan asked. At first, Nagato did not respond, but after a pause he spoke. "Uzushio fell around the beginning of the Third Shinobi World War. So why was my mother, an Uzumaki and daughter of the clan leader at the time, living in this country before Uzushio's fall?" Konan's eyes widened slightly as she listened. "I hadn't really considered it until now. My mind was focused on other things. But if the Kyubi Jinchuriki is connected to Sadahiko Uzumaki, there's a chance she might go to Whirlpool Country. If that happens, I will ensure her capture personally, and perhaps find the answers I've been seeking." Next day, Land of Spring, Daimyo's Palace. "I really wish I didn't have to wear this every time I stayed here," Naruko muttered, adjusting the red and black yukata in the mirror. Since revealing her survival 4 years ago, Koyuki Kazahana, the daimyo of Spring Country, had kindly given her a room whenever she visited. But as a guest in the palace, Naruko had to look respectable, no casual shirts or pants allowed. Fortunately, she was still allowed to carry her sekire and her chakra-sealed wristbands. She sighed and stepped into her sandals, giving a polite nod to passing servants as she made her way to the garden. A servant informed her that Koyuki was with Kiko and Yujin. Naruko guessed that Kiko had probably used her infamous puppy dog I know jutsu to persuade the daimyo to take a break from her duties. No one, it seemed, could resist Kiko's charms. The garden was a mix of indoor and outdoor space, with a glass dome protecting delicate flowers during the winter months. Koyuki sat on a bench at the center, playing with little Kiko, who laughed joyfully as she wove flower crowns. Koyuki wore a simple aqua and purple yukata, while Kiko wore a blue and red one. Lightly armored samurai stood nearby, and across from them, 4 Yuki Nin and Yujin watched carefully. Yujin was no ordinary being. Taller than a normal human, with dark green skin and bright red eyes, he had been created by the Rikadu Sennin 1,000 years ago to watch over the world and help those who needed guidance. Over the years, Yujin had become close to the Uzumaki family, aiding survivors and protecting the clan's treasures. When Naruko arrived on the island, Yujin had been her faithful guardian and, lately, her daughter's caretaker. "Mommy," Kiko shouted, running into Naruko's arms. Naruko lifted her daughter and hugged her tightly, feeling warmth and light in a world that had often felt dark and lonely. Kiko handed Naruko a small flower crown. "This is for you," she said. Naruko smiled, placing it gently on her head and ruffling Kiko's hair. "Thank you, Kiko-chan," Naruko said softly. Kiko beamed and ran back to make more crowns for herself and Koyuki. Naruko sat beside Koyuki on the bench, enjoying the peaceful moment. "Thanks for letting me and Kiko-chan stay in your palace, Koyuki-chan," she said. "No problem, Naruko. It's always a pleasure," Koyuki replied, smiling warmly. "And my director is grateful for letting us adapt your book into a movie." Naruko chuckled sheepishly. 3 years after her banishment and completing her Onmyotan training, she had begun writing under the alias Wandering Spirit by the Crimson Tide. The books, inspired by her own life and adventures, had become an unexpected hit. The movie adaptation was Koyuki's idea, with her as the main character. Naruko had been hesitant but eventually agreed, curious to see her story on the screen. A soft, awkward pause lingered before Koyuki spoke again. "I always assumed you dyed your hair red because Kiko inherited it from you, but..." Naruko smiled faintly. "The Uzumaki clan, both mine and Kiko-chan's ancestors, were all born with red hair. I dyed mine to honor my clan. Kiko-chan got her hair from me." Koyuki looked surprised. "So she didn't inherit it from her mother?" "There was no mother," Naruko said quietly. Before Koyuki could respond, Naruko's wristband glowed. "The emergency seal I left for Gaara at Suna just activated. Something important must be happening," she explained, her expression serious. Koyuki waved her off gently. "Go, Naruko. Your friend might need you." Naruko hugged Kiko once more. "I'll be right back, sweetie. Be good for Annie, Koyuki." With that, she vanished in a red flash, heading towards Sunagakure using her Mikado, God's Gate, technique. 2 days later, River Country. Near the border between Wind and Rain Country, 3 figures moved at a steady pace along a winding path. 2 of them were human, wearing long dark blue cloaks with red cloud patterns, and straw hats decorated with small ornaments. The first looked like a young adult, with a calm, collected demeanor, though one sleeve of her cloak dangled empty. It seemed she had lost her left arm long ago. Her companion was shorter, hunched slightly, with an unusual, careful way of walking that made her seem mysterious. The third companion wasn't human at all. A giant white owl glided gracefully above the two, carrying a bundle in its tail. Peeking from the soft blankets was Gaara, who looked tired but safe. "We should be near the hideout soon," the one-armed girl said calmly. Her hunched companion grumbled. "We could have arrived faster if you hadn't taken so long, Datara." "Hey, that's not fair, Sasori-sama," Datara replied. "It wasn't my fault the Jinchuriki was so tricky with her sand. You got a little careless and didn't bring enough clay after sealing the Sanbi," Sasori said, shaking her head. "Now you're missing an arm, and I doubt Kakuzu will patch it up for free." Datara's expression was a mix of frustration and acceptance, and the two continued walking in silence. Suddenly, a whirling sound cut through the quiet. Both spun around just in time for Datara to dodge a flying kunai. "Where did that come from?" she exclaimed, scanning the area. Sasori frowned. "So someone else has been following us. Besides the makeup-wearing kid." Before either could react further, the sky above darkened, as if the clouds themselves were holding their breath. "Wait. What?" Datara whispered, eyes widening. From above, a figure dove gracefully, her long orange hair streaming behind her, and a confident smile on her face. She landed lightly on the ground, holding a double-edged training sword. "I was hoping to reach you both quickly," the girl said, calm but determined. "But I guess I'll have to be a bit more careful." Datara lifted her hat, revealing long blonde hair and a keen eye for observation. "Is that?" "Yes," Sasori said, removing her own hat to reveal her sharp eyes. "It's the Kyubi Jinchuriki. Naruko." Naruko's eyes sparkled with kindness, but also determination. "You two have a choice," she said, standing tall. "You can release Gaara peacefully, and I promise we can find a way to make things right. Or you can hold on to him, and I'll have to retrieve him myself." The wind swirled around her, carrying her words like a gentle storm. Her presence wasn't frightening, it was firm, fair, and brave. Datara and Sasori exchanged glances. They had never seen someone approach with such courage and care. After a moment, Datara sighed and nodded. All right. We'll do it your way. Naruko smiled warmly. Good choice. Let's make sure everyone stays safe. With that, the giant owl gently landed, placing Gaara safely on the ground. He looked up at Naruko and smiled weakly. Thank you, he whispered. Naruko grinned. No need to thank me. Everyone deserves a little help sometimes. Now, let's all go home safely. And so, under the brightening sky, the group continued on, walking together toward the promise of peace, friendship, and adventure. Dear YouTube family. This is all for now. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your support. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.